Welcome back. I'm Kevin O'Keefe. Today on At Issue for Teens, young people struggle with their sexual orientation. According to a recent survey, 75% of students report hearing the phrase, "that's so gay," every day in high school. For a young person trying to come to terms with their sexuality, that phrase can be paralyzing. More proof that being gay is bad, wrong, stupid, and dumb. Take a look.
That's so gay.
That's so gay.
That's so gay.
That's so gay.
That's gay.
That's so gay.
That's so gay.
That's so gay.
That's so gay.
Oh, your brother's so gay.
Oh, that's so gay.
Oh, that's so gay.
Yes, I have definitely heard the term "that's so gay."
Gay, what a fag, right? That's the ultimate, common thing to do.
First of all, it doesn't make any sense. But usually the context that it's used within wouldn't be any different than a racial slur.
We certainly hear it from pretty much anyone in the hallway, but I also know that it's not just kids that say it. It's been said for enough years that adults say it.
And the expression "that's so gay" is one that's really quite popular within the student vernacular, and there's no doubt about that.
They say it in classrooms and hallways and whatever, and I feel like we should get a campaign somehow out on that, and get people to stop saying it, because honestly it's hurtful to everyone, even if they don't mean it.
It has come into the teenage lingo, MSN, Facebook, texting. It's there. It's in daily life. I hear it a lot.
I don't hear teachers say it. A lot of students say it. You hear adults say it a lot, which is a little weird. You think of it as a teenager thing.
I don't think I've heard anyone over 30 say "that's so gay" in my life.
The movie was gay, the shirt is gay, the water fountain's gay, everything's gay.
It means "that's so dumb, that's so stupid, I hate this, why is this happening?"
They're probably just saying "that's so stupid."
Oh, they just mean it's bad, that it's stupid, that it's wrong.
Something's stupid and they don't want to do it, they just say it's gay.
Gay is either the term for, two men in love or happy, and it's neither of that.
Somehow, if we make it humorous, that's supposed to hurt less, when in fact it's simply a way of putting somebody down or putting something down.
That's stupid, that's lame.
That's so gay. It's used to, talk about that water bottle or that pen or this desk. This desk is gay. What does that mean? It's ridiculous.
Kind of a generic derogatory term that's become part of the adolescent vernacular.
And joining me is a university professor who studies the impact discrimination can have on gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgendered young people. Rob Travers, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here.
You did a study called Truth.
Yes, that's right.
What is Truth exactly? What did you find?
Truth is teens resisting urban trans homophobia, and this was a study that emerged out of an earlier piece of research that a number of us were involved in called the Toronto Teen Survey. In that study, we surveyed 1,200 Toronto teens about different kinds of sexual health issues. One finding jumped out at us that was particularly interesting. That was that lesbian, gay, bisexual teens had pregnancy rates 3 times higher than heterosexual teens.
So I have to stop you there.
Okay.
That makes no sense to me.
All right.
Why do you think that is, that gay, lesbian people would have more pregnancy rates than straight people?
It's a great question, Kevin, because we don't usually think of gay and lesbian youth when we think of reproductive health.
Yes.
We did follow-up focus groups with young people to ask, why is this happening? What are we seeing here? So we were seeing young lesbians were more likely to become pregnant, young gay men more likely to impregnate a female than heterosexual teens. So we asked them why. They talked about things like pressures to be straight. Young women talked about being at parties and guys saying to them, "Come on, I'll prove to you that you're not a lesbian. Let's get drunk and have some fun." And in those focus groups, they said clearly to us things like, "What better way to prove that I'm straight to the world than to have a child or get somebody pregnant?"
So no one will know I'm gay then.
Exactly. So that's what spurred the Truth study.
And so some of the findings of the Truth study, I understand minority stress can be a big concern for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender young people. Explain to me exactly what that is.
Minority stress is one term that gets used. The other one is social exclusion, right? And social exclusion or minority stress are those ways in which we push people to the margins of society. So in the Truth study, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender youth talked about school. They talked about their peers. They talked about families, their cultural communities. They talked about all these different spheres of their lives and the ways in which, as you said at the beginning of the show, how the term "that's so gay" and the kind of constant bombardment of homophobic messages affect all spheres of their lives.
So they can't just get away from it at school. They go home, they hear it at home.
Absolutely.
They go to the church, they hear it at church. They go to a cultural group, they hear it at a cultural group. So every aspect of their lives. We've been throwing around the word transgendered. For those of people who aren't familiar, can you define that exactly for me? You looked at transgendered. What
Sure.
does transgendered mean?
It's a complicated term. I think the easiest way to understand it is to think of people who are born in one gender and who are in the process of transitioning or have transitioned into the gender that they desire to be.
And what did your survey find about young people who are transgendered?
Sure. That study is called TransPulse. There's more information available about it at transpulse.ca. That is the largest study of trans people ever done in Canada to date. There were 433 people surveyed. When we looked at questions about suicide, and we looked at people having ever felt suicidal in their lives or having attempted suicide in the past year, we found that 19% of 16 to 24-year-old trans youth in Ontario have attempted suicide in the past year.
In the past year?
Yes. Yes.
And what else did you find about their lives, the transgender?
That study is very broad and very comprehensive. We're in the very beginning stages of data analysis. It's actually an 87-page survey, so there's a lot of stuff that we measure in that study. We measure everything from employment discrimination, housing discrimination, access to health care, family reactions, you name it.
So how many transgendered people did you talk to in the survey?
433 were surveyed over a period of just over a year.
So do you have a sense of how many transgendered young people there are in Canada, or?
I don't know that we could make that prediction from that study, but what we can say, given the kind of very rigorous research method that we used, that of trans youth in Ontario, 19% attempted suicide in the last year, and 41% have considered it in their lifetime.
41%
have
considered killing themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Far worse than we thought it would be.
I want to get back to talking about gay, lesbian, transgendered people as a group. A lot of them, this has come up in the show, leave school because the bullying gets so bad. And what did you find out about A, reasons why they leave, and B, reasons why they never go back?
The Truth study gave us some really interesting insights into what school is like for kids. You know, at the beginning of the show, you mentioned "that's so gay" that 75% of them hear that from the Gal study. And when you're constantly bombarded with messages in school about being wrong, right, being immoral, you know, being a sinner if you're in a Catholic school or a religious school, and when there's that kind of a sea of misinformation and no actual accurate information, nobody's talking about you in a celebratory way in any way possible, you can imagine that it's very difficult to stay focused on your studies. The other reality is that kids are exposed to violence in school. It's not a safe place to be. So despite our desire to ensure that schools are safe for all young people, for this population of youth, it clearly is not the case. And we heard lots of stories in the Truth interviews and focus groups about school being a very, very difficult place to be, and a place that a lot of them wanted to get out of and not
never
go back
to.
And never go back to.
One place they do go to is the gay community, the lesbian community. And this didn't shock me at all when I read this finding, that can also be a difficult place for them. Why? Surely they're going to find a welcoming, friendly, and they do, in some cases I'm sure, but why can that also be a difficult place?
You might be talking about one of the findings from the Truth study where we interviewed youth who had moved to Canada from other countries who had come as refugees, and some of them talked about coming to Toronto in particular and choosing Toronto as a place to come to because it's a safe place and a fairly liberal city. And I think there was an expectation when they came that there'd be open arms and welcome and everything's going to be wonderful and I can finally live my life free as a gay or lesbian person. But if you're 17, your second language might be your first language might be something other than English. You may not have finished high school. You have very few employment skills and you're trying to get a job. It's very, very difficult to kind of survive in that milieu. Some of them talked about going to the mainstream gay community and experiencing racism. If they weren't white, and experience sexual exploitation sometimes as well from older gay men as well.
If a school is listening right now to some of these difficult findings that you're telling me about, is there some simple things that they can do right now today?
Sure. There's a very interesting study that has just come out of the U.S. that is that looked at suicide amongst LGBT youth in schools, and one of the findings there was that if teachers turned a blind eye to harassment, kids were even more likely to be suicidal.
So why would a teacher turn a blind eye to harassment? I don't understand.
I think teachers are ill-equipped to deal with that kind of harassment in schools. I think teachers are much better at dealing with they're not perfect at dealing with racism or other kinds of harassment, but they're better at dealing with it. It doesn't cross into that kind of personal moral domain, you know, like sexuality does for so many people. And I think in those cases, teachers know how to call something. They've been trained, they've been taught. There's open discussion about race and racism. So many of young people in schools now are not white, so there's lots of discussion about racism. Sexual orientation and homophobia, I think, are still very different things. So when there is homophobic
Come on,
harassment,
it's just that's so gay.
You know?
That doesn't mean it's bad against gay people, right? I mean, that's what you hear, right?
That's what you hear. But if you hear that 75% of kids are hearing that every single day of your life.
It's not as a celebratory term.
That can wear you down, and that's where minority stress is particularly insidious in terms of its impact on people. Really insidious. So in this study, they found that when teachers turned a blind eye, those kids experienced the most despair.
So that's one thing, I guess. I cut you off a bit, but one thing a school can do, don't turn a blind eye to that. Call the kids on it.
Call the kids on it. Have open discussions about it, you know. Have open discussions about sexual orientation in curriculum.
Just talk about it.
These are easy things to do. They're not that difficult to do. You know, in any classroom, there are bound to be gay and lesbian teenagers sitting there in high schools who are feeling like they're the only one, right? They're the only one experiencing this. And to open that discussion up, to shatter that invisibility, a teacher can do a wonderful, wonderful thing in that kid's life in that moment.
Well, thanks very much for coming in and
You're
sharing
very
your
welcome.
findings.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
it. Well, up next, students help reduce homophobia after this.